Okay, well, hello and welcome back. It's been a couple of months. We've been gone for a little while, but we're try to start this stuff up again.
For reasons.
So yeah, it's not a big deal, but we're just some changes and things happening and stuff. But we're Galactalloy is back, and we're doing our Halloween special on Dead Space today, and we have another great thing. We have our new guest today, who's Scott. Welcome, Scott.
What's up, guys?
And we have Tyler over here.
Tyler!
So, hello, Tyler. Hello, Scott. Thank you for joining me on this episode of our review of Dead Space. And happy Halloween, everyone. We hope you're all...
Happy Spooky Town.
No.
It's time to get scared, everybody.
So, Scott chose this one, and it was a great pick because we wanted to do like a Halloween special and try to relaunch on Halloween Day. So, all goes as planned.
Do we want to have him like introduce himself kind of thing?
We'll worry about other stuff in a second here. You just threw me off. Dang it.
That's what I do.
But okay, so if you are listening, please do us a favor and go to the social medias, the Facebooks, Twitters, Instagrams, all that kind of stuff. Maybe we'll fire up an OnlyFans or something. I don't know.
It's all still been there.
Anything. Well, it was all closed down for a while.
Yeah.
But I have hopefully, like I say, as long as everything goes on time, this is coming out on Halloween. Everything's all reactivated. I've been working on trying to revamp some of the stuff, and there's hopefully a Halloween theme to it and all that.
The Resurgence.
So it'll all be back there.
I think
again.
there was a Dead Space title actually called Resurgence. Like there was an
there was
animation or
Ignition.
something.
What? Yeah, Ignition. It
Ignition?
was the.
that's the game, the other game.
Yeah,
and
it's
then-
the Wii U. Not
Well,
Wii
here
U,
before we
but
get
the
too
Wii
much into
version.
that, so yes, please go to social media if you're watching on YouTube. Do the likes, favorites,
GALA.
subscribes, and stuff, and welcome to Galactalloy and our episode.
Do you want to spell it
Dead
for him?
Space?
I know we do that
Oh yeah,
sometimes.
Galactalloy.
Don't
Yeah.
forget the O people.
And don't put double L's in the Galact part. I do that all the time, and it's like you can't find what you're searching for. Like why? Oh, there's not two L's there.
You
So,
fail. That's
yeah.
what it is saying.
Galactalloy. You can find us on all wherever you listen to podcasts, except for Apple Music, I think still.
Yeah.
But we're on all
It's
kinds
like
of stuff.
one or two.
Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, all that kind of stuff.
Pop it on and do some chores or something.
Yeah.
I got
yeah.
it. I feel weird having this on because no one else does. So I'm taking this off. It's gonna
ruin all the audio.
Yeah, whatever. Deal with it. This is a new show, not new, but the new.
Whatever.
It's
Yeah.
a something.
New year, new me in October.
Yeah, it's a something.
Same
This
year.
is when a lot of the businesses start their, or like the government, the military starts their year in October.
Oh well, yeah, fiscal
There
year
you go.
changeover.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. New year, new you. It's
That's
October.
true.
There you go. Anyway, all right, Dead Space. So let's get into it.
Oh,
What do you
man.
guys think about Dead Space?
Who wants to go first?
So
Okay.
my very first thought. Okay, go ahead, Scott. You go ahead. You
So-
This is
start
an
it off.
adjustment.
So, Dead Space, absolutely loved it. It was back in the day the pinnacle of, for me, horror gaming because of the fact that literally Isaac didn't speak. And it
You
was
just wanted to
the
jump
Yeah.
straight into that. I
creepiest
like how
thing.
Isaac didn't speak.
The main character's name is Isaac Clarke, for those who are wondering.
But that was the thing that always threw me off about the game because most horror games, I mean Resident Evil,
You have character interactions.
Yes.
Yeah, your
Like-
main character has his own personality. He's a blank slate in this game, as
You
far as you
can
know.
more project yourself onto
Yeah.
being in that
Exactly.
situation, kind of thing. I feel you.
Yeah.
but
Because it was coming out. This came out after Resident Evil 4,
This
so
one
it's,
came out in 2009. 8?
I think it's
I
8.
thought it was 9 because 2 years later, 2011 was Dead Space 2. I think is what it said.
Either way, it's
No, actually, it was earlier than that because Dead Space 3 was 2011.
yeah.
So yeah, it might have been 2008. I don't
Because
remember.
yeah, I think 3 came out like not long after 2 or something. The
Yeah, no,
development
it wasn't
cycles were
long.
weird. Either way, it's right off the heels of Resident Evil 4, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So you have like the way the game plays is it's a third person shooter, survival horror. So it's kind of, you have similar mechanics that you had in Resident Evil 4, where you aim your weapon, you have like a light that shows you and like where your aiming is, and then you fight enemies.
except for with one key difference,
Mhm.
which separates it from all other zombie games, which is
It's not even a
Headshots?
zombie game.
well,
Well,
I mean, it kind of is.
yeah, I guess
They're
technically
similar.
speaking.
I mean, literally Necro.
They're reanimated bodies.
yeah,
or-
that's. I
well,
mean,
and you could kind of say it's like Resident Evil 4 in space.
Yeah.
because it plays a lot, and so I'm already gonna to upset people and hot take. Dead Space is not survival horror. At least not on normal.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
so
I-
if you
I-
play,
Oh yeah, no, you're the resource. I was gonna say, like, did we want to talk about? Okay, so we're getting to
okay,
that.
just to be, not to get into the end of it or whatever, but to be, so like a lot of people, they call them survival horrors and stuff, and they have survival elements. And sure, yes, on hard mode there is a lot more survival stuff because the resource management, there's a lot less ammo, there's a lot less items, things like that. However, first and foremost, when you play these, and especially because people are like, oh, the games get too actiony and stuff. Dead Space is an action horror game.
Yeah, it's
I
definitely
ran,
changed
at
my
least
perspective
on
a lot.
normal. At least on normal, because
Yeah.
I just played a normal playthrough because we don't have a lot of time. You know, we're trying to get from start to
Point A to
beginning to
point
be
B,
able
yeah.
to say if the game is decent.
Yeah.
I ran through
Oh,
Dead Space
yeah.
1,
Absolutely.
murdering everything.
Well, especially
I did
since-
not have any kind of sense of ammo or anything like that. And it's,
The only part that I ran into any issue with ammunition would be with the regenerator, but we'll get to that.
The game, it's even ammo isn't even really your only way of killing these things.
Yeah, you can punch, you can
yeah,
stomp, you
stuff,
can
Yeah,
shoot the
stomp.
legs off, and or like stasis them. You
Yeah.
can slow them.
Yeah.
can't
and walk
kinesis
up.
them yet though.
Yeah, can't. But like you can cut legs off, slow them, and stomp them to death.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot of options.
And literally, it's the game kind of gives you an easy way because like in most zombie games, it's boom headshot game.
Yeah.
Move on.
The-
In this
yeah.
one, you have to dismember them, but it's always you shoot a leg, shoot an arm, they're down.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's the biggest difference in the mechanic. The main mechanic behind the game is you can't just shoot the enemies. They make that very apparent because when you come into man.
Well, when you
on,
come
like,
into the
way-
idea of like a zombie game, like you say, the
I'm all
idea
thrown
has
off.
been you shoot
Yeah.
them in the head.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, in Resident Evils and any zombie movie, separate the spine from that. You shoot them in the head.
Yeah,
And in this one, it's like if you shoot them in the head, some enemies it could be helpful because now they can't
it slows
see.
them down.
Well, and they'll
bit.
flail wildly instead of being able to target you as well. But
Yeah.
they keep coming. So so you have
Which
to take out
is-
other
Yeah.
limbs.
Well, your main weapon. So for me, I did a plasma cutter only run.
I did.
Who didn't? Who did?
Yeah, I mean the other.
I didn't have the achievement. Like
Yeah.
the first time I played the game, I didn't do that.
Dude,
so I always said when
did
I
it
go
on
back, I would do
hard
it.
First time through, I had
That's
to.
the only way. Yeah,
I
mean, there's
literally could not do it any other way.
There's nothing wrong with the other weapons, and I'll probably touch on those later. They are very unique, and they have their things about them. But when it comes to like when we're talking about resource management, why use any other weapons and have because you have limited inventory space. So why use any other weapons that are going to take up ammunition from when you can just sell all that ammunition and have the plasma cutter ammo? And that's another big thing. The weaponry in this game, and up until probably the third game, is they're not actual guns. A lot of the weapons, with some exceptions, like the pulse rifle,
I
they're
was gonna say,
tools.
what are you talking about?
Well, most of them,
Yeah, there are mostly tools though.
Yeah.
and even
Yeah.
the
because
pulse rifle,
you play as an engineer. You play as like a mechanic, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah, which makes sense for him to play with only the plasma cutter. In all honesty, but when you get the pulse rifle, it's like almost near mid game by the time they're like, "Here's a rifle finally."
Yeah, and
Well,
it
that can
sucks.
depend too, though, because if you get the power node doors, so there are special doors you can open in the game that have a special resource, and sometimes they can have random schematics. Now, I don't know if the pulse rifle specifically can be included in that, but you can get some
Yeah, I don't know.
weapons early because they can randomly appear in
Yeah.
the
In those rooms,
power
yeah.
node rooms.
Yeah, that is true. Because the way you upgrade you have what's called a rig. Man, there's just so many things. Like I'm
Okay,
so
so
thrown
all
off.
right, so let's get back to the beginning, right?
Yes.
So just like the way that the game opens up, how the fuck do you make Twinkle Twinkle terrifying? Like she's singing that in the middle of space, and it's echoey and quiet, and it opens up.
You can barely
you know,
hear it too, so
Yeah.
you're like, what?
Yeah, so it's like that opening of the game is so great, and it just sets up this whole like it's creepy and quiet in space.
Yeah.
And so that's what a lot of horror things miss out on now. It's not that jump scares are bad,
There's a lot of jump scares.
but so many horror
There is that
games
game.
and horror movies use them to
Be the scare.
like terrible effect, and they're just everywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas so much of this game is like it's going to be
Ambiance.
quiet.
Yeah.
And there's going to be because there's like one bathroom right in the very beginning. You walk in, you hear giggles and stuff, and you're like, wait, did I really just hear
Yeah.
that?
And
But
then
the
and
only
the sink
thing-
goes off.
But the only thing that's consistent throughout the whole entire game, sound wise, is hearing Isaac breathe as he's
Yeah.
running through.
Yeah.
Breathing.
And it is absolutely
because
unnerving.
the whole thing is so okay, so I'm going to get back to the structure of this. For me, I played on PC. I believe, did you both play on Xbox?
Yeah, I played on Xbox.
PS2.
PS2.
Oh
so,
no, wait, no,
Was it
PS3.
PS3. Okay.
PS3.
I don't
Wow.
think it
So
was
we got,
on the PlayStation
we got a
2.
whole different wide range of
PlayStation
things.
3.
Like I was able to play.
I played it on what I had it on,
Yeah.
which was Game Pass.
Yeah.
And I had it played it on what I had it on, which was PS3.
Yeah. So like for me, I was able to tweak the settings. I could set my resolution higher. I could put my frames higher, which did affect things later, especially when it comes to like the physics engine, how things accelerated. I could. What was the you mentioned earlier before we started recording? There was something in the settings that you couldn't change.
Oh, so you can't change, at least on Xbox, you can't change your camera speed.
Which on PC you can. You
Yeah.
can change the mouse and the controller sensitivity, so you can customize things a lot more. And something that you I know like is that you can custom map all the controls for all the games.
So I didn't have a problem with that in this game because I felt like all the controls worked fine.
Yeah.
And I do love that. I think every game should have that option, especially for accessibility reasons and stuff.
Which for you, Scott, what is your take on that? I am more of the traditional, the developers design a game to be a specific way. I try my best to go into a game, whether it has customizable options or not, to play it how it was made, including brightness settings. I have grown up. I'm no longer a stupid kid and turn everything all the way up, even in scary games.
No,
like I
it's
played
scary.
it was dark.
So
like, so
with the brightness,
dark.
I usually only go just a couple notches over what the recommended is, just because one, I'm getting old,
Yeah.
and it's getting harder to see.
This game is
And-
dark.
And two, like right now, I don't have like optimal lighting set
Yeah.
up for my gaming. So if I have it in most games, if I have it set to what's recommended, I can't see anything. Not to like where it's enjoyable. Like I can't play the game.
Yeah.
So,
I set it to where I don't want to be able to see everything that's hiding in every single shadow.
Yeah.
But I make it where I can at least see
Yeah.
where I'm going.
Where you don't have to flashlight everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this game is designed to be played like in the dark, no lights, and you use your flashlight of the weapons you have to see.
Which
Like-
I did, which by the way is hecka unnerving.
Yeah,
Because it's literally like when you hear something fall in the game, not a big deal. But sometimes it'll echo,
Yeah.
and you'll hear it like on the far side of the
especially
room,
with a good set of
and you'll
headphones
just
or
be like,
something.
you'll be like,
Did someone drop a wrench?
Yeah.
Like who's working on the
Is some-
sink?
is someone
What
in,
happened?
Is someone in my house?
like I remember this literally. I
Yeah.
remember a few times playing and then going, hearing something going, hello,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then,
is someone here? Hello.
back to my question: what's your preferred?
So I'm a variety gamer, so I play a whole lot of games,
Mhm.
often, sometimes all at once. So if I can kind of match the controls to other games that I'm playing, it makes it easier on me to
Yeah.
Well,
just
that
I
makes
mean, you
sense.
have to be able to customize if you're playing one game with your hands and the other one with your feet. You said all at once.
Yeah, that's true.
Yo, I mean, like constantly. Like I play one game for a while. Like,
No,
all
I
right,
know what
I'm
you meant.
done.
I know, I got you.
Yeah. Uh-huh,
No, but see,
whatever.
so like I don't mind, but so like the argument comes into like Dark Souls. People say like,
Mhm.
oh, the controls
Getting
are
back
made.
to our roots.
Our
Sorry.
controls are made to be uncomfortable on purpose. I'm like, that doesn't make it harder. It makes it frustrating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the game is already hard. You don't really, or like the argument about like Silent Hills or older Resident Evils and the tank controls and stuff.
Yeah, like you can't run and shoot at the same time, which always.
Isaac is slow as hell.
Well, okay, so if that adds,
but you can still move as Isaac.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's some modern gaming conventions.
like you can
Yeah.
point and walk.
but
like,
it's slow
and
because you're trying to aim, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But well, like some people
I
will
like how
say
you can
that,
sprint backwards though.
yeah,
I
you move just as fast backwards and forwards.
I
Yeah.
do like the fact that you can adjust the
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 pull,
cutting,
or
yeah,
the
cutting
yeah,
angle.
that's like
Yeah.
with a
That's a huge help.
Well,
Yeah.
like with the control, some people make the argument, like in Silent Hill 2 or in older Resident Evils, that the tank controls, like, oh, the games today suck because they don't have tank controls. Or like okay, so yes, those did add some things at the time.
Mhm.
And when you think of like Silent Hill 1 or like Isaac, he's an engineer. Silent Hill 1, the guy was an everyman. He's not a soldier. So he's not going to be super fast. He's not going to be super great with aiming his weapons and things like that. But that all makes sense. But you can make your character handicapped in the game without making the controls of where like I have to twist my hands around backwards
Yeah.
and hit one button with my nose at the same time.
They were products
You
of
know
their
what I mean?
time.
So it's like, yeah, they did things, and a lot of developers have even come out and said, like, listen, like we made the controls to try to work the best we could for the game and the angles and the set, and because like Resident Evil has, you know, the
Static
static
camera
camera angles and stuff like that. They're like, a lot of it's not necessarily to make it harder on you. It's just like that's what we could. Some have said yes, they do that on purpose, but that's also. Well, my thing is like the option. If you want to play that way, great. I don't.
Yeah.
I want to be able to change my controls.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing. A lot of these games set it up. I used to hate it when I couldn't change it to how I wanted it to, but then I've kind of learned that some games set it up for like gameplay purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you'd be like,
Well, that's another. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but finally got used to the Dark Souls controls on console, and for that game, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, there are some things that are really nice about using the shoulder buttons to attack and stuff. My biggest thing though is like in Bloodborne, or was it Bloodborne Dark Souls 3, where you can change like your sprint button, so I can run and move my camera at the same time because I can sprint with a shoulder button. Like that's one of my biggest gripes with Dark Souls is because you have to remove one finger from the camera button to sprint. So you run and then you kind of stop and look, or you do the claw, or it's stuff like that, which is unintuitive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But the standard controls, to get back to Dead Space, they work really well.
I had no problems with the controls for Dead Space. I mean, that really doesn't. It was a little weird because certain buttons, like what is it in Dead Space?
Reload is A.
Yeah, reload is A instead
of
X.
The bottom button.
And that's just one of those where it's just like every other shooter game in existence.
It's like
reload is X or whatever on Xbox or whatever. So
and like the healing. So there's a lot of contextual controls. So like your controls differ depending on whether you have your weapon aimed or not. So like healing in the first game is X, whereas in future games is B, and it just like it changes your brain. You can change the controls back to classic controls, but it's one of those things.
So
that's
like
really weird.
if I could change them in Dead Space 1, it would have been nice. But after playing it for a couple hours, I stopped wasting healing items by accidentally healing instead of reloading. You know, so
everyone has panicked healed at least once.
Oh yeah,
that is like
it's the biggest consumer of resources. Oh crap, panic. Yeah.
You know, Dead Space is one of the few games I will honestly admit is the king at trolling you about, you know, like, oh, you know, you walk into a room, there's a lot of healing items in here. There's a boss coming up. And then you get all ready.
Yeah, it subverts your expectations.
Nothing.
No, the game overall does a great job of keeping you on your toes, especially when you think about the dismemberment. Because you get so used to, so like the first couple of hours is pretty much just shoot everything in the legs, and then you can easily take it out because they're all slow. And then you start getting the leapers, is the dudes with the scorpion tail.
Oh yeah, God.
And
dude.
it's like those
Worst
work a little
enemy.
bit differently, you know. So you can't just shoot at their legs.
Yeah.
And then you get the little babies with the tentacles and stuff. And so like there's a lot of variation in the enemies, but then you get other ones where even if you cut off the legs, or like oh my goodness, he splits into 5 different things. I can't remember his name now. He's called like the divider, right? So you shoot off his legs and he's like, haha, they're enemies.
Splits apart.
He splits into 5 enemies. So the game does a great job, like you say, of keeping you on your toes, and you don't really quite ever get used to, or once you get used to something, it's like, hey, the strategy doesn't work anymore,
throwing
buddy.
something new at
figure
you.
it out now.
Or like the berserker, the only way to hit the legs is from the back. So you can't just take his legs out. You got to slow him first, get around behind him, then you can start shooting him in the legs.
Or you just slow him down, shoot both arms off, and he's dead.
Yeah, that too. I'm just saying, like there's other strategies. You know, like your strategy doesn't work anymore.
But the game does.
I didn't even remember all the names of the enemies.
Is it called the berserker? Now I'm doubting myself. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say the game does hold your hand a little bit by like, oh, here's a really powerful enemy. Hit the yellow thing.
Yeah, hit the yellow spot. Well,
The
there's
yellow
some of
spot
that
is
where the only thing I would say maybe to change that a little bit is like on that guy. Now that's gonna kill me because the brute or whatever they are. Maybe change it instead of like a big yellowy spot, like that's a red fleshy spot, because all the rest of him is like bony
Armored.
and white.
Yeah.
So okay, we've talked about this before. Like there's still some things where like, listen, it's a video game. Like it needs to be fun. You know, so but you could maybe totally do it in a way that's not quite so like shoot here.
Yeah.
The big yellow thing.
Which brings me up to something though. I found it really funny. I remember reading a lot about people not knowing how to play this game and having trouble with killing stuff. And oh, I didn't know you were supposed to shoot. You can find it on forums all over. They look at, oh, you shoot him in the arms. How did
It
anyone
tells you over and
like
over.
5 times within 10 minutes?
Audio logs, like the
writing on
messages,
the
writing on the
wall.
wall.
Yeah,
the
the writing on the wall.
the communication
is, like, the best
between
part.
Hammond and what's her name, like they're all like you're always like
Immediately after, so when you walk down one hallway, you can walk to the left, which is optional, and there's an audio log about a guy saying, shoot him in the limbs. Even if you don't pick that up, if you go the way you're supposed to go, as soon as you walk through the door, the dude, Hammond, where it calls you, is like, Isaac, make sure to shoot him in the limbs.
when you pick up the plasma cutter, written in blood on the wall is cut the limbs.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, how did anyone?
Because
Dude, people just suck.
Because people
Sorry.
literally
Not
are
sorry.
are freaking
Oblivious?
smooth brain.
Well, okay. I will put out a defense for somebody out there. Maybe they were just so scared because so this game sets up ambiance and atmosphere. That's the biggest thing about this
At the
game.
beginning.
Like it's like Metroid in that sense where it's like the atmosphere of this game is the scariest part. And maybe somebody was just so terrified that they just weren't paying attention. They panicked. They're like, oh my God.
But you'd have to be terrified for like an hour straight.
Dude,
like
but
tinnitus
even-
in the ears.
But
It's just,
dude-
you don't hear anything. You just hear you know what I mean?
It's like my wife, who's still relatively new to games, understood this. I mean, I talked to her about it a lot, but she started playing it and she understood this game like right away. So,
But there are 2 instances where, like,
that
the
doesn't
one
work.
time when the dude literally says, "Hey, shoot him in the limbs," and then when you're repairing the pod thing,
the train, the track, or whatever. Yeah.
you're replacing it.
Yeah, taking one
There's
car off or
Another, again, audio log.
That's what I'm saying.
Shoot
There's
him in
like
the limbs.
5 in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's
And
like,
it's like, I'm
now,
like,
if,
okay.
if those weren't there and the game expected you to figure it out, okay, I could see where like some people are like, oh, I didn't realize that was more effective because they just powered their way through it.
yeah, because you can kill them by shooting them. It
Yeah,
just
they
takes a
will
lot.
eventually die, but it's like, come on, man! Like this thing told you,
Also,
If
like
you just think
over and
about the
over.
weapon you have, and when you shoot it, it's like the three lights. It's a line. It's a cutting weapon. It's called the
Yeah.
plasma cutter. Like, come on, dude.
Well, and just when you think just simple strategy, because even like we're playing Resident Evil 4, in the beginning, it's advantageous to shoot zombies in the feet, to knock them down because you don't have a lot of ammo. So you can like shoot them in the foot and then kick them or whatever.
Yeah, you shoot him in the
Knife him to
head.
death.
Or knife them, to save
Yeah.
ammo. So like it makes sense. And then once you get a stronger weapon, you start shooting in the head or whatever. But yeah, it's one of those where it's just like, oh man, like how did so many people not get
I
that?
don't know. But to go back,
Well, I want to say something real
Yeah,
quick,
yeah.
if you don't mind. When you say like from the very beginning, the opening of the game. So like you fly in the ship.
that's what I was doing. I was going back to the beginning.
But like you're totally defenseless, and it's just like all of a sudden these things start popping through.
Yeah.
You see somebody getting murdered in front of you.
Yeah, like you're with a team of like 6 people, and 4 of the 6 are instantly wiped out.
And they're supposed to be security crew. Like they're supposed to know
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're supposed to be the soldiers. But the thing that is a trip is, now that I think about it, when you first start off in this, you literally are wearing, you're pretty much butt naked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have your engineering.
You're in your
suit on.
engineering outfit. Yeah.
But by the end of the game, you got enough like armor plate. It's like, listen, we're gonna change your outfit. How are you gonna change it? We're just gonna add one plate.
Yeah, it's gonna upgrade.
So then
Yeah.
by the end of the game, you finally look like what you're supposed to. But it's
Yeah.
just like they just added plates all the way down your side of your body.
Yeah,
Oh, and changed the helmet.
yeah. Though the helmet does change. I forgot about that when playing through this time. I was like, oh yeah, that's the helmet I remember.
No, because the first helmet you have is so fugly.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Well, the iconic one is like the level 3 armor. That's what's
Yeah.
in like all the promotional material
Mhm.
and all that kind of stuff.
Not
because
the super decked out.
yeah,
but like
once you
where
get to
have,
level
like,
4
one
and
shoulder
5,
versus 2.
it looks totally different and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But
It's just,
so thinking of the beginning though, to me, honestly, one of the best parts about this game, and I wouldn't say it's wholly unique, but it's something that really adds to the world. Is you come into the ship, the Ishimura. You're on a search and rescue mission. The communications have gone out. You're going to go rescue. And,
Isaac's there to rescue his booty.
yeah, well, Isaac has a message from his girlfriend, and yes, he's going to go see what she's up
so,
to.
real quick, before we get into that, do we want to get spoilery with this? Because, okay,
It's I don't know, such
it's an
old
older game to consider, though. The remake is coming.
Yeah,
So if people
that's
are
true.
listening...
Hold on. I will state this for the remake. They are saying that they are coming up with their own story. Yes,
Well-
it will derive from the original Dead Space, but they said that the original Dead Space was such a masterpiece.
They don't
They're
wanna mess
not-
with it.
Yeah, they're not remaking it.
Interesting.
This is not
That's
a
what I
remake.
thought.
Well, see, and I've also read
So
that
it's a
they're not
recreation?
completely changing everything,
Mhm.
but they are like they're keeping a lot of the core stuff the same, and then making tweaks and things here or
Yeah,
there.
they're
So, but I mean, that just begs the question, like, this is one of those like, okay, spoiler warning, just for anyone out there. If
Spoilers.
you're listening to this and you want to play Dead Space before the remake comes out, they may be very, very different. But if you continue to listen from here on and you spoil it for yourself, that's your fault.
Yeah. So, yes, you have a message from your girlfriend, but you're going to this what they
The
call
mission
Planet Cracker.
is there's
There's a communication blackout,
yeah.
and you're going to go see what's with the CEC. I can't remember what it stands for, but you're going to go and see what happened with this ship. And the ship was on an illegal mining
you don't know that
expedition.
at first.
Okay,
No, you
it was-
don't.
yeah, that's right. It was on a mining expedition to Aegis 7, and they find something on Aegis 7, and when they bring it aboard, everything goes to hell. Like you start in, and like everything's dead, literally, figuratively and literally. You go in, and the necromorphs start popping out, and you're just like, "Fuck!" And you gotta like run. And that's all you know is you just run and you run.
I will state this though, and I don't know if you guys will agree with me, but the way the few survivors you do run into are baloney crazy.
It's terrifying. Yeah, you run. One dude's bashing his head against the wall. The other girl's sawing another dude, and then kills
as
herself.
you go through and you learn that the thing they brought from the planet, the thing they call the marker, it slowly manipulates people
Yeah.
and makes them so
It
some
presents
people
as like signs of dementia and other things.
well, and just to jump a little bit ahead in the series, they explain that in more audio logs later on, in saying that those who are of weaker mindset,
yeah,
who are manipulated more easily, those are the first necromorphs.
Yeah.
Which is actually really interesting because I've seen some people talk about some things in Remake about how certain necromorphs look, because some of them are very pink and fleshy, and then some of them are much more white and gray.
some have like armor and stuff.
So
yeah.
the white and gray ones should be those who turned first, those weaker-minded ones, because they've been dead longer. And then the ones that are pink and fleshy are the stronger-minded ones, because
Yeah.
they've just recently turned. And then you have other people on the ship who are bashing their head on the wall. Those were probably some of the last survivors of
Yeah.
the strongest,
Minds.
Because- yeah.
what's the word? The resiliency.
Yeah.
You know, their mental resiliency. They held on for a lot longer, and it slowly
Well,
drove them
things
insane.
go to shit so fast, but then by the time you get there, there are still some survivors, but like the events of what's happened it hasn't even been that long.
So that's one thing that comes into question a little bit, because when you watch the animated movie where the security team or whatever is trying to figure out about the infestation they say that happens like they die, and then Isaac's ship shows up.
Yeah,
So
literally,
it's
the last
like
person
hours
dies.
later.
Yeah, it's like I think it's like 2 days after they bring the marker on board.
Yeah.
Is when because like they start seeing signs of people going crazy, and all of a sudden just
But then
all
you
hell
have
breaks
people
loose.
who have look like they've been dead for a long time, who have turned into necromorphs and stuff. You know
Well,
what I mean?
Yeah.
Two things. So I think the movie ends with like the last security person dying as Isaac's ship is like pulling in. Like
Yeah, it's real close.
they're watching his ship come in.
Okay.
And they're like, "Oh
It's been a little while since I've seen
Yeah,
it.
we're getting ready to get rescue," and then they ended up like croaking at
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
I
2
think
seconds.
I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact the infestation of the aliens just happens so quickly.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact is what I'm calling the halo effect, is that they tried to make it way too big, way too quick, and the continuities got.
Oh well, yeah. Listen to our former episodes on Halo.
Well,
and
we
you'll
talk about
understand
this a
what
lot
we're
with
saying.
Halo, because there starts to be a lot of inconsistencies, and then you have like the books, and a lot of stuff got retconned over the years, and that's going to
Same
happen
thing
a
with
little
Dead
bit.
Space.
Yeah.
Well, when you think about comics, like when a series goes on for so long, but it begs the question: is like, should we try to make these things so big where that crap constantly happens?
Oh,
Because then
man,
you
just
open
wait
up
till we
so
get
many
to Dead Space
questions. You
3.
know what I mean?
Well, because the thing about Dead Space in itself, the later games expand more. It focuses more on the marker.
Yeah.
The first game focused more on
You don't even know
Isaac.
what that is until like chapter 5 or 6.
It's
Yeah,
literally
it's
it
a
focused
while
more
into
on Isaac.
Yeah.
And you would
So-
miss a lot, so it's not important that you pick up the audio logs and text logs, but you miss like flavor text. You miss little things here and there.
So
that eventually
I
get
would
explained.
argue in the first game, the audio logs are a little more important
Yeah.
because it makes it a lot creepier once you start to learn
You understand
what's going on the ship because it adds
Especially
to the
actually-
horror.
Like this was the first time. Sorry, this was the first time that like I just realized. I didn't even dawn on me when I was younger. But like when you run across these bodies on the ground, like those were the bodies that you just list an audio log to.
Yeah.
Like it's literally like you picked up the audio log and like you walk around the corner. And it's like, oh, like this guy was trying to hold out and like he just got wrecked. Like
The game actually, if it takes a lot of time and you really have to go out of your way to find these things, but there are a lot of writings and on the wall, like survivors writing
Yeah.
stuff on the wall,
Mhm.
and you'd be very surprised. Like there's like they were supposed to come to get us,
yeah,
and, and you see like, and then you run into a room and there's a whole bunch of necromorphs.
Yeah.
Because these are the people that were sitting in this room waiting for rescue, and now they've died and turned into necromorphs,
Mhm.
and now you got to murder all of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
So
Well, and that adds to like just in general, Dead Space is great, right? The
Mhm.
first one is a great game. Like I'm just gonna say right in the beginning, it is a great game. And with those like the one game, Layers of Fear, not to get into that, but just the idea like of the painting or whatever adding. I
Mhm.
know it's literal in that, but in this game, it takes that idea of the layers
oh yeah,
and it does it so well because like you say, if you just played the game, didn't read any audiobooks, it would still be creepy and it would still be
Mhm.
scary and there would still be jump scares and stuff. And so yeah, but then once you start to dive into and you listen to the audio logs and like you say, you learn that these people were just alive like minutes before you walked in the door.
Yeah.
You know, like
you could have been literally going to your objective and like there's like people just got killed. Like,
yeah, so it's adding those layers. Like the deeper you dive into this game, the creepier and creepier it gets.
And not to mention, once you start to understand what the marker does, it like I said, it really benefits to play with a good set of headphones because something you may not realize on your initial playthrough is from nearly the beginning, like you said, the giggles.
that giggle and
There are little like whispers
Yeah.
throughout the
Oh,
entire
yeah, I had that
game.
written down here.
And
yeah,
you're
the
like,
whispers and
you
stuff.
don't know if it's because Isaac's going crazy or if it's because it's the necromorphs or
Or
it's because
survivors
there's
in
survivors.
the
Like
other
you
hallway.
have no idea.
Which is
It messes with your head.
absolutely hilarious because of the fact that you're playing this game and you run into you actually don't interact with anyone. Like we said, Isaac is very silent. He doesn't talk to anyone.
Everyone talks to him or through him.
And here's the thing: no one questions it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Think about it. You're literally in a situation where these horrific things are going on, and the guy who were your life depends on this guy fixing this
Yeah,
train.
it's
Your
just-
life depends on this guy fixing whatever. And he's like, "Hey, Isaac, are you there?" My dude.
It's like you have like a video log and
Little less table.
you see Isaac just staring at the screen just like
Yeah.
Well, and
the only
okay,
reason
so
why you know things are happening is because the engine got repaired.
since you brought that up, it does beg a question a little bit. So, like, don't get me wrong, I appreciate the idea of Isaac being silent and stuff, but why does he never once say like, "Hey, can we go look for my girlfriend, maybe"? Not once.
Well, no, because he's not.
It's
He wasn't
implied.
supposed to be there.
No, I know, but you watch the thing in the beginning, so you know that she's there.
But
No,
the
but-
thing
but-
is,
but-
do you know?
That's a question for
Okay,
later.
Yeah,
But in the beginning,
yeah.
it is set up where Isaac is going there. He knows his girlfriend's going there.
Mm-hmm.
But if his girlfriend's there, why? But like I say, why not once would he just be like, "Hey, yo, like we're going through the medical deck. She was the chief medical, whatever.
Well,
I'm just gonna take a look around real quick."
Hammond asked you about it when you go to medical. It's like, oh, that was you were thinking. Nah, it's like that was Nicole, wasn't it? Like like chief medical officer. Blah,
Okay,
blah,
so
blah.
like what you were about to bring up. So we're gonna jump. This is a big spoiler,
Yeah.
right?
All kinds.
Your girlfriend's dead.
the
the
chapter
entire-
chapter titles literally spells that Nicole is dead.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, and most people don't. A lot of people
Yeah.
don't know that.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I actually saved every chapter so I could see the chapter names and see the Nicole is dead spelled out.
Yeah,
And it tells you even before the final mission.
Yeah.
Because it shows. Okay, so the audio or the videotape you watch in the beginning, it cuts off.
Yeah.
And then later in the
So-
game, it shows you the full thing because the person's like, "Did you even?" But
Just
she
like,
says, "Did you watch the whole tape?"
that's what I'm saying. Does he know already, or did he not ever watch the whole thing? The way he reacts makes it seem like he never watched the whole thing. He
Yeah.
always cut it off. So
But-
it's like
and-
was he going crazy?
But
Was
it
he
begs
not?
the question of, did they even show him the whole thing?
Yeah,
Did they cut it off? Because if I remember correctly, in a later game, she or in 2, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but your girlfriend, is asking you like you saw the tape, but you don't know he saw the whole tape.
Yeah.
So assuming he didn't, because the whole game he doesn't allude to, or nothing alludes to knowing that she's dead, because what's her face watched the whole tape.
Yeah.
I mean, when we find out she's a double agent or whatever,
You see
but-
her, Nicole.
yeah, you see Nicole do things,
Yeah.
and the other people know Nicole exists. So it's just kind of weird that at no point you
Yeah.
would think they would just put in a little bit like, search for her a little
Yeah.
or something.
But
you know what I mean?
A lot of it does. They do that on purpose because things start to unravel. Because the girl, I wish I can remember what her name is, but like she starts to tell you like, Isaac,
I have it written down.
I just saw my brother and he's been dead for years. And it's in that moment you go, if you're
Kendra Daniels.
if you're paying attention, you go, everyone else is dead. She
Yep.
just saw her brother.
Maybe I'm seeing things.
Yeah, like what am I seeing? What am I not seeing? What am I doing? Am I killing actual people?
Well, no, because the dude who, here's the thing, when you eventually find Nicole, or yeah, whatever her name is, the girlfriend, when she's dead,
Nicole.
look, yeah, when you find her, like I'm thinking in my head, why isn't she a necromorph?
Yeah, well, the
Eh.
yeah,
Listen,
but the other guy that
But you
you
don't
run
technically
into,
find her body though.
no, you never
right?
find her body.
Yeah, no, you don't know at least that you find her body.
Yeah.
well,
Well, and I guess the thing is you come across that other fanatic who was the one that helped create the regenerator, and he's still perfectly alive. He gets wrecked, but he's perfectly alive. So
but he turns, doesn't he?
he does, but
Yeah.
you see him and you interact with him. You do that whole section before you see the image of Nicole. So as a player, you sit there and go like, "Oh shit, Nicole's being attacked." Like you don't have it. You wouldn't really necessarily have the preconceived notions that she's dead. You might question it, but like you've seen other survivors that are fully alive and interacting with you. So it's like maybe she did survive.
Well, and in that moment, like you say, you argue, okay, shit's going down, hardcore. So like I have to protect her and have to save her.
Mhm.
So obviously in his
Single track
head, he
mind.
believes she's alive.
Yeah.
So it's just a little weird to me that at least in one chapter, they didn't have a thing where like, oh, search for Nicole. And like
Yeah.
you go to her apartment and you just find like evidence that she's not there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah, they do kind of it's there, but it's kind of like it's your main motivation for doing the things that you keep doing, but it's also in the background.
well, it's just kind of weird because sometimes, like you said, like he just follows orders. He's just like,
Yeah.
hey, you go here, do that.
Yeah.
Okay. You go here, do that. Okay. Like there's never once a like,
But he
hey,
doesn't say
I'm
okay.
I'm the engineer. Maybe like, hey, I have a suggestion. Like maybe we should go, but it's always just
It's because well, sorry, go ahead.
No,
You-
I
you-
was just going to say, it's weird that Hammond has you running around doing all this stuff, and he's supposed to be the chief security dude.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like,
How does he know that
it's
things need to be fixed?
it's video game logic, I guess. He's in the bridge and he's doing his thing, and what's her name? I already
Now,
forgot
for
her name.
what's her name, it makes sense because she's supposed to be a fellow engineer
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
there to help you fix. So when she's saying like, "Hey, the oxygen whatever is messed up, we need to go down to the
Yeah. It's just 'cause
the
ev-
herbology whatever
Yeah.
to fix the oxygen making plants and things like that." Like, okay, that makes sense. He could be like, "Okay, I concur." Like, we
Yeah.
need to-
It's just because from the beginning of the game, everything you're in crisis mode the entire time, and until the ship is back in full working order, like you don't really have a moment to sit there and go like, oh, maybe I should like look for her. Like everything is like, if we don't do this, we're gonna die. It's always
Yeah.
always if we don't do this, we're gonna die. So
Which-
I didn't even. Sorry, I have to get this out because
Go for
I've been meaning to mention
go
it.
for it.
But I alluded to it earlier, and I finally getting to it. My absolute favorite part about this game, like I said, that's not entirely unique necessarily, but it rarely ever, and this is something we've talked about a lot in other games, it rarely ever takes you out of the action. Whether it's your menu, your aiming, small cutscenes with introduction to new enemies, and like horror scenes and psychological like head screws, it rarely takes the control from you and puts the camera somewhere else. Very rarely. It's like there are certain set pieces and action scenes that happen that it does that. But
when a giant tentacle grabs
yeah,
you,
but for for like 99%,
suddenly becomes a
which this is
hentai movie.
trust me, we'll get. I'm mentioning this now because it's going to come back in Dead Space 3, but it rarely ever takes the control out of your hands, and it puts you into this world.
Well, and it's funny because that's one of my notes right at the very beginning. It was such a great way of eliminating a HUD.
Yeah.
Your
Minimal
health
HUD.
bar is your spinal thing on your rig,
Mhm.
which is like explained in universe. Hey, these
Yeah.
are supposed to be
all
know,
synced
to
up.
help doctors and stuff see what's wrong with you. And then when you pull up your menus, they're a little hologram in front of you. You can see all your stuff, and you're like, what a great way of
And you
being
can
like immersive
Be
in
attacked at any moment
Yeah,
while doing any of those
there's
things.
no
even
save
when
space.
saving.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
because okay, that's another one. Is you think all the save rooms for the most part have been safe, and then there all of a sudden is a couple
Towards
that
the end,
aren't,
yeah.
and you're like, oh, I'm going to go save my game real quick, and then you go to save, and you hear bang, what, and then
Yeah.
and then
No,
knocked off the save
what-
station.
what
The only
tripped
time it
me out-
pauses is if you hit pause.
What tripped me out was one time I remember going into a save room and there's a vent, and I remember like most of the save rooms there's no vents.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just staring at it. I'm like,
Yeah.
and nothing happened, but it still psyched me out for like a good.
That's
I was about to say that the devs did such a good job of, because some people might be like,
Placement.
oh, these are wasted or reused assets. They copy pasted walls. We're like, no. A lot of places they put vents on purpose because you're like,
So
something gonna come out of that, and then nothing comes out of it, and it's just to keep you on edge the whole
Yeah.
time.
It's very stressful, especially on harder difficulties.
Like you get
Oh,
on
man.
the elevator and all of a sudden you look up, there's a vent.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah. There's like I don't know if it's. I think in the first game you're safe on every elevator, so I don't think it's still Dead Space 2. But they make you feel safe on. I think
I think
the big elevator doesn't count because it's in the maintenance section and it's like an elevator ride.
No,
But like I
it's-
think the small.
I think
there
it's
might be
the
one
to-
instance.
it's one going to I want to say engineering.
Is it?
I'm trying to remember too, because I feel like there was one,
There was
but it
one.
wasn't super threatening.
No,
Yeah.
it's like a regular Necromorph.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
still
it
one
was
of
just
those.
like one time.
Yeah, it's like it's one of those things where you always feel safe, and then like they only do it once, and then
Yeah.
now you're on edge for
It
the
is-
rest of the game.
It's
Yeah.
not going to engineering, it's coming from engineering. You
Yeah.
go down to engineering, you change out the trolley, the train, and then on your way back up.
Yeah.
drops
Okay,
in.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
the other one, the big one you're thinking of,
Yeah,
that's down in the mining
Yeah,
area or whatever.
maintenance. It's like maintenance or
Yeah,
something.
maintenance
Yeah.
and stuff. That one is one. So there's a lot of things in this game that if you're paying half attention, you'll realize like, okay, something bad's
video
about to
game
happen.
tropes.
Yeah. So it's like being on. Oh, it's got the big elevator. You can see the big vents on the wall. You know, it's like, okay, eventually, because you ride it for the first time, nothing happens, and then once you complete one of the floors, then you get attacked. But that was a great scare on that one too, because as you're going down, you see the dude that's on the level
Yeah.
that you can't get to, and then you go past, and because I wasn't looking at first, I was looking at the other wall, seeing if thing was coming through the vent. I'm like, okay, it's not coming through, so I turned back around, and it was like, oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Hi.
I actually no, you can actually screw yourself on the elevator, because I remember there was one time I was going down on an elevator or going up an elevator, and there was like a necromorph just walking across like a catwalk or something like that, and I shot at him and I hit him, didn't kill him, but I hit him,
And I was like, oh,
and he was like,
screw
"Ugh."
you.
He started running. He ran around the corner. I was like, oh, okay, well, bye. And the next thing you know, he came busting out the vent like, remember me? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, they'll follow you.
Enemies
through.
are
Some
pretty
will
smart.
follow you through rooms too. They'll
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
from one room. Some don't, but some will go from one room to the next and come in through
Yeah.
the different.
It leaves
Okay.
you never feeling safe.
So that brings up. I have a couple of questions about with the difficulty and things like. So I said in the beginning, some people probably gonna be mad about this, but Dead Space, at its core, is an action horror game.
Yeah.
Now, if you play it on harder difficulties, it adds more and more survival elements into because there's less ammo and things like that.
You die
but,
so much faster.
well,
so much faster.
And the death scenes are brutal.
yeah. Well, I mean, and I have a couple of questions about that. One is like, how do you feel about the checkpoint system?
There's so
Because-
many save points.
Well, it's not just save points, but every room is a checkpoint.
Yeah.
So like almost every single room you go through
That's
is a checkpoint.
actually it's a
so there's
it's a
really
good
no
thing to bring up. There's no real punishment for death,
Yeah.
and that's what my wife, who's not big into horror games, who's not a super video game person, was actually like okay with playing this game because even if she died, she's like, whatever, I'm still in the same room. Like
Yeah.
I can just keep going. There's not really a punishment for
because it resets all your ammo, all your health,
yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
It is yeah.
yeah.
It just gets stressful at a certain point. It gets frustrating because, like, especially on hard difficulties, you're like, "Crap, I got to keep doing this part
Well,
over
and
and
see,
over
that's
again."
the part that I like is that especially I don't because in this the hardest mode do they have is it like a you can only die so many times or
Nightmare.
No, that's not till 2. Nope.
Nightmare. I think it limits your save to like.
well then I know in
That's-
Dead Space 2 it has
that's
3
hardcore
saves
mode.
and you can't die.
That's
It's hardcore mode.
You unlock impossible mode once you beat the game once, but there's no limited saves or like.
See,
things
that's
in
my
the first
question.
game.
if they take away checkpoints and harder difficulties for those who want that challenge, I think it's a great thing. Because I personally had no problems, at least on normal mode, with there being just, I mean, every room was a checkpoint. Because like you say, it makes it a little more accessible, and that adds to the, this is an action horror game.
Yeah.
They want you right back in that room. They don't want you to have to replay the past hour and a half from the last save point kind of thing. So that's one where, because I've heard so many people who are like, oh, Dead Space 1 is the only good one because it's the only one that's survival horror. Like, no, that is an incorrect statement.
Slower.
It might be your favorite. Like, you can like the game the best out of the three. That's totally fine. But it is not just straight up survival horror, at least if you're playing on normal mode, you know? Because even in like Resident Evils, if you play on the easier modes, like if you play Resident Evil 1 with Jill mode and on easy, like it's not very hard, but it's still a lot more limited in that game.
You still have ink ribbons.
You still have to think about, like I said, ink ribbons.
Yeah, ink ribbons.
You can't just kill every zombie even on easy mode. I mean, you probably could, but you could still run out of ammo and stuff.
And
whereas
your
like in Dead
inventory
Space,
is so much more
dude,
limited.
in Dead Space, not once did I ever worry about. I had so many med packs, so much ammo, and doing the plasma cutter only, I sold all the ammo for everything else.
I have as many power nodes as you'll ever need.
I had every upgrade the second it was available.
You could like, I never had a problem finding a power node door and not having a power node for it.
Yeah,
even if
I always
didn't,
kept one or two on me the whole time.
Well, even if I didn't, I have enough resources. I can go buy one,
run back to the store and come back.
Let's talk about the store. The store is literally the most busted thing on this.
It's like, goofy a little bit.
It's like, okay, I'm on a ship. There's no one here. Why am I paying?
I didn't even think about it that way. Video game.
Mr. Engineer. Well, okay, he's not a software engineer. He can't hack the program.
Not yet.
But it is kind of silly when you think about it.
It's like there's no one here. No. Listen.
Well, but that also adds to
the
you can buy
unlimited.
ammo. Yeah, you can buy as much ammo as you want, as long as if you're even being slightly conservative. Even on hard mode, you still have a lot of ammo.
Oh
and
yeah.
Stuff. So on impossible mode, no. I mean, you have less in hard mode,
like 2 ammo per drop or something.
But in normal mode,
like
it's like you can just buy all the ammo you could ever want and just run through gunning everything.
Or literally, there's an instance where if back in the day, I don't know if I don't think you can get it now, but back in the day when you bought the DLC, like there's like the security DLC.
You can still get those, yeah.
Yeah, literally, you go from like in the first few seconds of the game when you get to your first shop, which is not that far in.
Yeah, it's like an hour in or something.
You literally could get best weapon, best gear.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Off rip.
So I know that's there because I was mad because I had some of those DLCs when I played it on 360, and it does not transfer into Game Pass.
I had my DLC on the second game, not the first one.
Yeah, so I don't know why it doesn't, because I had some of those DLCs, but they didn't move ahead, and I don't know if it's because I didn't put in like my disc and it didn't register like me owning the game if it's a Game Pass only thing.
Yeah,
but yeah, my DLCs didn't carry over. So, or maybe if I know some games you had to like.
Also, you use like your EA pass is through like it's probably through I don't know. No, if it was through mine, then you should have had it. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying because I owned it on 360 because there were some games at least at one time like you had to log in on your 360 because they changed the way that Xbox Live worked. And so you would have to like log in and play the game on 360. It would pick up you had the stuff. Then it would go over to Xbox One when you logged into your account again. So I don't know, but with that begs the question of not to get too far off on stuff. But so harder difficulties are obviously much more survival horror than the normal, right?
Get killed in like 2 hits.
Well, the argument of which difficulty the devs intend you to play it on, this gets so annoying because for me, normal is the intended play style.
You think so?
Okay. And all it is it's an argument semantics, I know, but all you would have to do, right, is rename hard mode normal and make like an easy and a very easy. Yeah. And then make impossible very hard.
We've talked about that a lot too.
You know what I mean? Because it's one of those where if you say, oh, we intended you to play it on hard mode. Yeah. Right? So why not just make that
the normal
the
mode?
Regular median default, this is what we want everybody to experience it at.
I can see that because there are so many animations in the game that are tied to your deaths. And there's like, to me, the game is more fun when you're trying to like plan out and survive and like, you know, how you can ignore this necromorph, you go kill this one, then you go like use your stasis and everything. Plus, like the instant death traps are way more annoying in harder difficulties than they are in earlier difficulties. Because that's the only time I died in normal mode was instant death traps. But yeah, to me it was like I feel personally it's more enjoyable on a harder difficulty, and that's what my intended way to play would be. Because then you actually feel like, oh man, I gotta like try.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm guessing I'm coming in for the devs' defense, but I think they put a normal in to kind of because they wanted people to focus on the story.
It's accessibility.
Because even in the commercials, everything focused on the reason why he was there, what was going on, like the horror and everything.
Yeah.
The difficulty aspect kind of came like as a after effect, I guess.
Well, but you make the argument of like Dark Souls because everybody's, or not everybody, you have a lot of people who are like, why don't they make an easy mode? Or like, it is a set difficulty because they're like, this is
They
the
wanted
game we
you to
wanted
play.
to play.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I don't know what Visceral was thinking. I haven't looked it up. But if Visceral is saying like hard mode is the way we intended you to play it, that should be the regular mode that it sets by default, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then, because if you want that story mode, so like we were discussing Jedi Fallen Order before the podcast, and the default mode is Jedi Knight, which is hard.
Yeah.
And then you have Jedi below it and Padawan below that,
story mode.
and then story mode. So you can de-escalate that difficulty for those who don't want it. And that standard default mode is that intended difficulty.
Yeah.
So like if your argument is that Dead Space 1 was intended to be a survival horror game and it should be a certain level difficult, then hard mode should be the way you go. And then hard mode should just be normal. Because I would argue most people would think normal, that's the way it's supposed to be played. You know what I'm
Standard.
saying?
Yeah.
Yes, but you yourself said it's not a survival horror game. It's an action horror
Oh,
game.
no, I totally agree. I'm just thinking, like,
So-
from their standpoint, if they intended it to be more difficult, if they wanted you to play at a higher difficulty and stuff.
Well, I think that's why they changed their formula in the later games because they wanted that story element.
Yeah.
Because that's why, in the later games, Isaac has a conscience. He's not just
Well, it's just one of those
I
where,
have,
like, for me, thinking of, like,
thoughts
we
on
try to
that.
make a podcast for your everyday gamer.
yeah.
And it's one of those where it's like, if you go into this and you're like, oh, Dead Space was too easy. Like, I don't even get, it's like, then you you need to play it on harder impossible mode.
Mhm.
But then a lot of that would be avoided.
Impossible is so hard though. Once you beat the game, once you unlock impossible mode, you start all the way over. You can't do. You
Oh,
can't,
no, I know.
You can't new game
But
plus.
I'm
though.
just saying, like, for those people who are going in, when you're like, oh man, like Dead Space is really like horror, you got to think of it like, so the median level should be like
Yeah.
that thing. And like I say, it's just a simple change of names. It's not
Yeah.
like you got to develop a lot of
At
different
least
stuff.
regardless of the difficulty, the good thing is like the actual like creepy factor, like the experiencing the world of Dead Space around you is no matter what difficult you played on, it's still just as
Oh yeah,
terrifying.
it's still
Yeah,
masterful
absolutely.
in horror, even on normal. It's
Yeah,
great.
Absolutely.
And the harder modes don't really make it scarier. Okay, but like
More
just like so
stressful.
much more stressful.
It's just it's overwhelming.
yeah,
That's the best way to put it because it's like,
especially in later games, man.
you know what part freaks me out? It always freaked me out, and it's literally I think my only downside to this game is the 0G areas.
Oh yeah,
Because they always put those little scorpion things in there, and
they just jump across.
they
Which is funny because I never had a problem in Dead Space 1 with them.
yeah,
And now that's going to change when we do other episode. But in Dead Space 1, yeah, they were kind of annoying, but I never really had an issue because those ones were like once you learn, you stasis them and then you cut off arms and cut off because cutting off the tail doesn't do anything because then they just run at you on their hands still.
See,
so it's like cut off their arms.
I had a hard time adjusting to be honest at first because I'm so used to playing every one of these games on the harder difficulties that like I was conserving stasis packs and I was trying to be conservative with ammo and things. It's like I'm playing on normal. I
This
can
is
just
not-
blah, 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 blah,
That's
blah,
what I,
blah.
like I said.
Yeah.
By the end of the game, I had so much stuff because the first for a couple levels, I would do that. Like I'd shoot off legs and stomp dudes, or I was trying to get the achievement for punching dudes to death, so like that.
Mhm.
And then it was like by the end, even doing that, I had so many med packs.
Yeah.
The one thing, okay, I don't know if you guys are gonna agree with me or not, but the ending boss of this game made no sense to me.
It's lame.
I hated it.
Okay, let's come back to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Because I had another question about. I'm sorry, the difficulties. I lost my place now. Dang it. Okay, so before we get back to that, though, some other stuff with the gameplay and things like that. One thing that is really great is the doors. Now it may just be a loading thing. I don't know if they did it on intentionally, but the doors take time to open. So
I think it's a combination of loading the assets, but it's also done intentionally.
yeah,
To
because
scare the piss out of you.
well, because you can't run away.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that's really different about this one is when you think, and that's another notch I think on the survival horror versus action horror, is that you're not fast enough to escape the necromorphs.
No.
Running by them doesn't
Especially the
work.
tweakers later on when the military ship crashes.
Yeah, well, and that's expected as you get further in the game. But in the very beginning, it might be, okay, so like the very beginning of Resident Evil, it's like, okay, you got to really run past everything until you start building up some ammo and then strategically take down whatever. But from the very beginning of Dead Space, they're like, you can't get away. Like we said earlier, things will follow you through rooms. They run faster than you. You, if you try, like you can.
They will grab you.
Yeah, I mean, you can juke
They
them.
will ambush you.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're not set up to be able to get away. You are set up from the very beginning. Like you stand and fight.
Yeah.
So it's like stand and fight.
Oh,
Duke it out.
sorry.
You got to duke it out.
I got to make a mention of, I only really had one issue with the glitch the entire time I played, but it may have been a PC thing. But just after you escape the first encounter where you can't fight back and you grab the plasma cutter and you open that first door and you see that dude get wrecked by a necromorph, the first time I played it, the necromorph didn't spawn. The dude just like accelerated into the wall and it blocked me from the doorway because the enemy didn't come out for you to kill. So there was just an invisible wall. I had to restart the game. It wasn't like a long time, but I'm just like,
funny.
I'm just like, why can't I get through door?
Well, it's funny because thinking of that, I really didn't have any performance issues with the game. Never really chugged, never really slowed or anything. A couple of the doors took forever to load here or there.
Yeah.
And so I did have one glitch myself. One on the elevator from the bridge, right? From the command, the one in the center. I was going down one time and I thought that it was a horror effect of the game because all of a sudden Isaac fell through the floor and was in space, right? Just total, like looked like this, total space. And then I popped back into the elevator and I was like, okay, wait a second. And then the elevator lands, the doors open and there's the first room. And then the second door is just space. And you're just looking out into the abyss.
Awesome.
And so I was like, I wish this was on purpose.
Yeah.
Because for a moment, it made me think like he was having an episode with the marker. Because I think by that point, they're starting to tell you how it messes with your head.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe this is just something, because it's been a long time since I played the game.
I couldn't
forgot.
remember.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. So like I'm like, okay, I can't go back. This is where I have to go. I did the little the direction thing. Like it says go this way. So I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna walk through the
Fell
door.
through the world.
And yeah, I just fell out into space and died.
Yeah. Aggie had a similar glitch running away from the regenerator, I think it was. Yeah.
The only glitch I've ever had was just random enemies when like I shoot them and they just go. And
Oh,
just
yeah, they
disappear.
accelerate. Yeah,
Every once in a while you'd have them just launch. Yeah.
Dude, I don't know if it's because like I'm running at 165 hertz or something, but like for all the games, there were weird instances of hyper acceleration, or like there'd be like one of the blades, like they'd be on the ground dead, or one of the ones that was like pops up to scare you, excuse me, and like the blade will be in the ground and they'd just be spinning. Like,
And they have to.
Or they'd be like they'd be stuck in walls. I'm like,
Yeah, dude. They'll be like rag dogging.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
they're
it was
stuck to the railing.
I can't remember what it is right now, but there was some other game where it's like the frames or the physics or something of the game was linked to it's an older game.
Dark Souls.
Is it in
is
Dark
one of
Souls?
them, yeah.
It's linked to the frames. So like if you're playing
Your
on
animations are
accelerated,
linked.
yeah, it's there was one. You ever watch Ponxy Fu? I love Ponxy Fu.
Yeah, you should show me a lot of the videos.
If you watch his video of he's playing Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And so the animations and stuff are tied to the frame rate.
Like the cutscenes too, right?
Yeah. And so like he's trying to do the tennis thing with Ganon, and he keeps missing and getting annihilated by the electric. And when he does his Majora's Mask episode, he doesn't adjust the frames. He's like, oh, no wonder I couldn't block these balls, because like he's hitting the button, but the
This is my
animation
fault.
is like going off in the game before it actually swings or after, so he kept missing.
Yeah.
So it was like the way that the frame was tied to the frame rate.
Am I
It
just
screwed
dumb?
it up.
Yeah.
But it's hilarious. If you've never seen Ponxy Fu, you should check
Yeah.
it out.
I'll check it out.
But yeah, that was like the main issues I had with playing on PC. It's just because like it looked great. It really looked clean, and the lighting effects and everything was just amazing. But yeah, there was just some weird.
Speaking of
physics
horror
stuff.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Or another glitch I've been having is when like you're trying to pick something up and like I could see it. It's that little orange light or blue light or green light, and it's like, can I pick it up, please?
Yeah,
Can I
use
pick
kinesis.
that
it
reminded
up?
me. There's a
glitches through the
lot.
wall.
I don't know if it was just me, but there was a lot of items that I could not pick up.
Yes.
You hear the sound.
Yeah.
Right? As it goes boing or whatever. And I'm
little
like,
holograph.
I'm looking around. No, it wouldn't pull up the hologram. It would just do the noise
yeah?
that the hologram picked up. And I'm looking everywhere. It's like, there's no item. And I tested it a bunch of times, like walk up and down the stairs. It was one of the hallways right in the very beginning. And I'm like, there's something here. I cannot. It was like glitched in the wall or something where I couldn't pick it up. But it kept doing the thing as if I could.
Yeah.
So that happened to me a few times, but other than that, I mean, performance wise, it still runs fine. You know, you can play it easily on Game Pass on Xbox One, or I don't know if it's
PS3.
No, it's not on PlayStation Plus, but I mean, it's available. You know,
You can get it for PlayStation 3.
Yeah,
it's easy. But
one thing that did really annoy me is Dead Space doesn't handle corners very well. So like,
You get stuck on shit a lot.
well, yeah, one, the stupid ramp into the tram.
Oh yeah.
Like you have to hit it straight on or you don't, and that's one of those like,
At least
okay,
there's only like one instance where enemies are in that room, like
but
one or two.
Still,
Yeah.
it's one of those where people may try to be like, oh, we'll limitate. No, not on Xbox 360. There's no reason why they couldn't make it where you
Step
just
up,
you just
Isaac.
picks
Step
his foot
up.
up. But no, if you get caught on the corner, you got to like back up, work around, get straight on to go into it. But then the other thing is, so obviously it's not a cover shooter, but there would be times where I would just try to use some like walls to my advantage a little bit. Like there's a necromorph around the corner, it shoots. I don't want to get shot, so I'm like trying to shoot it, and all the lines from the I can't remember what it's called, plasma cutter would be on him, and it would shoot the wall.
Yeah.
And it's like, so there are some little tweaks that.
Yeah, the whole perspective of like where you're standing versus the lines, like you would think, but
Yeah.
man. Are there any like particular standout key moments? Because there's a lot to this game, and there's a lot of like there's 12 chapters, and you kind of retread your steps here and there because you visit medical twice. You go through
you actually
apartments.
revisit a lot of
bunch of
parts of
places.
this.
Yeah.
And
The
I actually
bridge,
have it written down in here
3
too.
times,
That
I
really
think.
didn't bother me.
Yeah, well, it to me, I don't mind the back. We talk a lot about backtracking in games and how it can be really frustrating. But if it makes sense in the context of the game of what you're doing, and plus it changes every time you revisit an area, it's no longer safe. It's no longer the same area you were in
Yeah,
previously.
I felt every area was changed enough. There was different things going on because you go through medical the first time, and it's really no big deal. But you go through the second time, and the regenerator is chasing you.
Oh.
And so
Well-
it added enough. And that was kind of nice, too, because you were fairly familiar with the area. So it made it where you could run from it a little bit better.
Yeah.
You know?
But again, that plays into the whole. You'll see a lot of dead bodies of just like people when you go through
Yeah.
the first time. You go back through.
And now they're
anymore.
necromorphs.
Yeah.
So it's like that adds to that effect. But the
It
only
adds to
issue
the
I
isolation too, because you're retreading the same ground. The ship is not. It feels big, but it's really not.
I mean, it's large. It's
Yeah.
1,000 people. But when you think of that, there's like, what, 2,000 people that work on
Like an aircraft
an
carrier.
aircraft carrier here. So it's not, I mean, you think, okay, those things are huge. But like when you look at that, you know, and you think 2,000 people are on it, and this is a 1,000 person ship. Like, yeah, it's big, but it's
Yeah.
not. Like when you look at the scope in space, you're like, well, that thing's like the size of a planet. It's really not as
No.
big.
No.
So
Yeah.
my whole thing about the backtracking thing though, it's always like, okay, hey, go fix the pump in engineering.
Yeah.
You go to engineering, fix the pump. Oh, come back to the bridge. Go back to the bridge. Oh, well, on your way here, something broke.
Yeah.
Like you just passed it, but
Yeah.
it broke. So
Yeah.
you gotta go back. I'm
Yeah.
like,
well, and it's funny. Okay, so some of that stuff
It's like
we've
starting
talked
a
about.
computer or like an engine sequence or something. Yeah.
Some of that stuff we've talked about. Like, I wonder if we've played a lot of games, we've seen a lot of movies. So
Jaded.
some of I don't want to call myself jaded, but I mean, you expect certain things. So
Yeah.
you start playing Dead Space, you're like, something hadn't gone wrong in a while. Something's about to break.
something's about
Yeah.
to break.
So it's one of
So
those where
even
like,
after you fix everything, you're like, there's got to be something else. And then all of a sudden that dude's like, Isaac, join us. We're the part of the Unitology Church, and we created and destroyed everything. I'm your enemy. Like, okay, now you're here. Where were you like 2 hours ago?
yeah.
Well, here's it.
And I don't remember there being any little hints at him and
No,
stuff.
he just all of a
So-
sudden you walk into a room and he's there talking to
Okay,
you.
so the argument would be that the Doctor, I think, has done better because you get little flashes of him. He messes with you for a little while, and then there
Yeah.
is that. I
You
mean,
have the audio logs and
it's
things.
not totally implausible, but it is at the same time going like, how is this like fat ball guy surviving the whole time? Where like Isaac is having to mutilate super mutant necromorph things. You know what I mean?
Like, here's my question. Do the necromorphs have like a Isaac sensor in their head? Because they don't seem to bother nobody
Well,
else.
if you
They get chased a couple times here or there.
Yeah,
you know?
I think getting ahead of myself, when you think about it's not there yet, but when you think about the context of the second and third game and the importance that Isaac has,
I get
then
it.
yeah, he is the chosen of the marker. You don't know it, but like the marker, like I'm assuming as soon as you get on the ship, the marker's like, this guy's the most intelligent person on the ship. I'm gonna target him.
Yeah.
I'm Stephen fucking Hawking.
Well, and see, that is kind of weird because when you think like the marker influences everything around it, and if it's a hive mind and they know, so okay, you could argue that those people staying still and stationary, Isaac's moving around the ship more, so he's exposing himself more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So more necromorphs talk to each other about where he is. But if it's a hive mind, if one of them finds that thing, they all know where it is. So yeah, like how are they hiding out so much better than Isaac is? I mean, is it because they're not tromping around in a giant metal suit? You know, like, I mean, because that thing, okay, so to be fair, your footsteps aren't very noisy, but in real life, he'd be like, dong, dong, dong.
Yeah, for real.
So is
What?
that why he's
No,
getting
actually,
fought?
he makes that sound when he's in 0G. That's the only time like he'll be like, dong, dong,
Yeah,
dong,
it does
dong,
because it's
dong.
like muffled. And yes, there are footsteps, but it's like realistically, this dude running from would be like, boom,
Speaking
boom.
Yeah.
of which, he can sprint in that suit very well.
Oh yeah.
Thinking about, dude, like run down the hall and be like, hold on.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine because you if you think you're wearing a full bodysuit, it has some armor pieces, especially by the end, then it's like it's super protective, but really it's not. It's more of just like an EVA, like they show in the other. It's not until the second game where you get an actual armored suit.
Again, here's my next question. So when you're upgrading the suit and you're making it more platey, add your little one plate, like why would you have that upgrade anyway? Like thinking about it, it's like, I'm an engineer. I need another plate.
I would assume it's so in my head it's like maybe like heat protection or something. You know, like okay, follow me here, right? Basic
Trying to put context,
like
yeah.
engineer dude working on something small electrical, not a big
Doesn't
deal,
need a big suit.
versus welding like guy who needs like more stuff.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
And you think about where you pick up the schematics. I think like where you pick up the higher level suits are in much more dangerous areas. Just in general, even if there weren't necromorphs, they're in very dangerous.
so like one of the
portions
upgrades I
the
think is
ship.
in maintenance. So
Yeah.
like you would think like maintenance dudes working on heavy machinery might want a little, like I said, like welders wear a welding jacket.
Yeah.
Like the space guys, like if you go out, you might want to have a little protection because a meteor the size of a pea can end you. Because it'd be like a bullet moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour just sailing through your head.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if you want to have some protection, if you got to go outside of the ship, kind of. So in my head canon, it's kind of like that.
We've completely glanced over it because we've sung the praises of this game so much, and we've like pointed out some like little flaws that aren't necessarily the game's fault, but there is one section that is absolutely the game's fault, and it does not deserve to be in here, and it sucks.
The turret section.
turret
I was going to ask
sections.
you guys how you felt about the turret section.
They're not even hard, but they're not
So-
good.
so-
like, it's just it's the worst part of the game, honestly.
Okay. And 1, absolutely useless. Hated it. 2, loved it.
Well, 2 is a little different.
So I mean, they never really bothered me.
2 is we'll get to
Okay, so that's a sticking point for a lot of
Yeah.
people because there's a lot of because I've seen some other videos where like this game is great except for these parts, they're trash, and it's like okay, they're not awesome.
Yeah.
If you remove them totally, like it wouldn't hurt my feelings, but at the same time, I didn't find myself going like, oh man, I can't believe. Like once I got done with it, it was like, it was fine. But one thing I did appreciate how they're designed is they are difficult and they're made to make you feel like you got by the skin of your teeth.
Oh, right.
Because there's no way you're going to have like 100% hull integrity with all the meteors and stuff coming at you and things like that.
Yeah.
So I tried to look at it more of that was another way that they were trying to add some tension to those moments.
Yeah.
Now, like I say, they're not particularly great. If they remove them, doesn't bother me, but I at least see what they were going
Contextually,
for.
I get it, but from a gameplay standpoint, it just like it's not fun.
Oh, I'm
But
not
even
saying they're a
then-
good thing.
Yeah.
But even then, when you're sitting there shooting all the asteroids, you still get dinged, and it's like, yeah, I know you were trying to protect that hallway. It still got hit. You still got to go through it, but at least you shot some of them. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
You
Then
could have
what was the
shot. You
point?
could have shot none of them. The hallway not exist.
Yeah.
I mean,
it still doesn't exist. I mean, I still got to walk through space to get to the other side.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, but I guess it's that versus the ship. Well, that's why I say it's to add like the tension of like, oh man, like the whole ship is going to go down. Kind
Yeah.
of thing. So, like I said, I'm not necessarily saying it was done well. I at least understand what the intention was. You know what I mean? Where some people would just be like, no, never. You know what I mean?
And the
Yeah.
other part that makes me giggle is like if you fail, it's like a meteor hits right where you are and you explode, and it's like
Then you just restart. Yeah.
the luck.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like really.
So with that, let's bring back up a little bit with bosses and stuff, because you started to touch on that a little bit. Now there's a couple of quote bosses. Well, because like the first boss is the what was they called, the brute or whatever, or the berserker. What I don't know.
Yeah.
what
When
they're
you
called.
come down from the bridge.
On the bridge, like
Yeah.
that right? I'm trying to remember like that's the
Berserker,
first.
brute, whatever. Yeah. Technically, yes, that is considered the first like big enemy.
Yeah,
you
actual
will
like
enter.
boss kind
Yeah.
of thing.
To me, that game really didn't have bosses. It had a chase boss. I'll give it that. But I didn't really feel like that there was like a
A
true
chase boss.
the regenerator. When you
Oh
gotta
yeah,
run.
yeah, yeah.
But besides that,
Well, I
if
would
you're
consider that
thinking-
kind of a boss, and then and then you
it's
have
an
the
arena where you have to like circle around.
well,
fight
and then I'm
enemies.
thinking the Leviathan in
Food
the,
storage.
Yeah, food storage. It's supposed
Okay,
to be like
yeah.
a quote boss. You know what I mean?
I'll give you that because it's
Yeah.
like all over the thing. It has phases,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
You know,
then
you
then you
shoot
have the final boss, which is
Yeah.
the hive mind,
which is
and
stupid.
that's another one of those where it's like they weren't offensive to me, but it's another one of like if they took them out, it'd be like whatever. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Literally, I hated the end boss because it was like literally my life has been made to hell by this game. My booty call is dead. My crew is dead. I'm stranded in space, and now I gotta fight what looks like a gonorrhea going crazy. I was so mad. I was like, "This is stupid."
Yeah.
Like, at least give me something where I'm gonna feel like, okay, you know what? I feel accomplished for killing this thing. This thing just looked like a big, massy pus thing.
So
It
like
was-
the brute guy is kind of I think is better as a boss because yeah it is an arena, it is bossy, but you have to stasis it, you have to hit it in the right parts in the arms, they're very armored, or you have to get behind, whereas the hive mind and the Leviathan is just like, oh, shoot the yellow tentacles.
Yeah, it's more of just
And
like
it's
like a set piece kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like it's an action set piece where, especially on easier difficulties, it's just you literally just the final boss is like you just move to the left.
yeah
move to the
you have to
right,
move left and
shoot,
right
shoot,
or you're
shoot.
gonna get slapped
Yeah.
by the tentacle.
The only time it's any kind of stressful is when he grabs you and you have to shoot like the last two.
Yeah, so those parts are annoying. Or when the Leviathan grabs you running through food storage through the walls and it's pulling you through and you have to try to hit the thing
Yeah.
while it's trying to. And so in that moment, it's kind of like that's fine because it's difficult and yeah, it restricts you a little bit, but it's kind of realistic. And like if you were being
Mhm.
grabbed, you wouldn't be able to perfectly aim at that thing. So.
Yeah.
Which is funny because when it seems to know when you're like just when you're about to line up that shot, it's like noink.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna move right at that moment. Yeah.
I think honestly, to me, if we're gonna talk about like, I'm sure there's other things we'll mention, but leading up to the final boss is you go through section after section, wave after wave after enemy. It kind of sets something up big, but that just doesn't like the big thing we talk about in a lot of games is it just doesn't have a good enough payoff. The boss is not fun enough. It doesn't like it's big and scary and intimidating, but it's not like it just throws off your expectations. You're sitting here going like, oh man, yeah, I'm gonna fight something big and scary, and then all of a sudden it's like this is super easy. Where's the threat? Like
Yeah.
that's the problem. I think
You really gonna call that thing scary?
it's I mean,
If you
it's
were there for
supposed to
real,
be
you'd
scary.
be shitting your pants.
But I'm not there for real.
But I mean, you're supposed to, like you said, you're imagining you're in
Yeah.
his shoes.
Yeah, you just saw it wreck the Kendra. Like,
Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those, and contextually, it does make sense because you learn more in later games of the whole make us whole, make us all one.
Yeah,
it's
it's,
supposed to be the
convergence
the
events.
convergence of
Yeah.
everybody
It's-
coming. So it's like because people are like, this doesn't make sense to be there. Like it does,
yeah.
but is
Yeah.
it good or is it well? Or if they did it, could it have been better executed where it
Have to
was
see
like
how
more
they do in the
fun?
remake.
You know what I mean?
So I'm gonna kind of jump ahead a little bit from how they explain the convergence in 3. Like these things are supposed to be like hyper intelligent, hyper like powerful.
The evolved forms, yeah.
Yeah. So well, even in their bases, they're supposed to be very powerful to the point that they can absorb other necromorphs pretty much just by like looking at it.
Yeah.
In a sense. And this is they explain it's like, listen, if this thing gets to, if a convergence happens, it's end all. That's it. There's nothing else we can do. We fail.
Yeah.
So you get to this point at the end of Dead Space 1, and there's pretty much a mini convergence happening here. And again, move a little bit to the left.
No, that's why I
move a
say,
little bit
like,
to the right.
contextually, I think it's like it makes sense for it to be there, but in the execution, it's boring and it's
Yeah.
not very. It's supposed to be this big, exciting set. The music swells, and there's. Oh, I just slapped the camera. My bad. But the music swells, and there's stuff happening, and planets like coming apart, and so like it's supposed to be this big deal, but it doesn't feel very big deal. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Which again, I'm gonna make this point. So, the convergence is supposed to be a whole lot of races combining, right? Now, there was only 1,000 people on that ship, and there was probably 1,000 people on that planet.
Well,
Maybe that's why the worm's only as big as it is.
Well, I thought the crew on the planet was the same crew from the ship. They just like divided their time.
Mm-mm.
No,
there was its own.
no,
yeah,
there
it
was
like
the
a small colony.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
there was
couldn't
a-
remember.
Yeah, there was a colony on the planet because
Okay.
the colony gets infested first, and
Yeah.
they try to escape, and then that's what
That's
infects
right.
it.
Yeah,
and shit,
okay.
So
Yeah.
and that's getting okay. So we're getting a little too deep into the lore and stuff of later games and all that. But I mean, I would say just like in general, like I said, you've seen the Leviathan. You see
Yeah.
how on the ship it's putting together this organic growth and building or whatever. So it's like the idea of it. It's not that it's set up, but like I say, it's like, is it fun or is it more of just kind of boring? You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
50-50, yeah. I would.
I'm not saying I like that it's there, but I'm also saying it doesn't. It's not that it doesn't make sense why it's there, you know.
Yeah.
But I do think that they learned because it's not there as much in later games or in
Yeah.
the next game, I should say.
I will point this out, and I don't know if you guys noticed it like I had, but in the first game, the only way a person can become a necromorph is that little butterfly thing with the arm tags it.
Well,
Yeah. Well,
no, even in the first game, it says that people can become necromorphs over time, but through the madness or whatever, and they slowly devolve and become a necromorph. Those things are created. So
in the first game, those things only create like the super like green nasty versions because in later games they do create normal necromorphs. It's
I want to
weird.
say they create normal ones in the first one too.
I don't. Maybe they do, but I don't recall.
But it's a combination of. So like those weaker minded turn, and then like that thing is. So also, and this is in the first game too. Some of it's evolutionary, right? So like some people ask like, why are there so many babies on the Ishimura? Because you have little baby and literally little
There's
baby enemies with
there's
it.
a
Oh, man.
nursery.
I didn't even think about how creepy that section is because I didn't pay attention the first time I played through all the floating jars.
The body parts.
I
So
never
it
realized.
explains it in the game. So
It does really well, actually.
from the first game, not because some people think it's added later. Like no, it talks about it from the first one. That the reason why they're growing fetuses is to replace body parts for miners who lose them using heavy machinery and
Yeah.
stuff. That's why you have so many baby enemies on the Ishimura, or like the little gray children. No, those.
That's in the second.
That's
game.
in the second one. But the little baby
Lurkers.
bombers are in the second one.
The
Yeah.
baby bombers are in the second one. In the first one, they just have the babies that crawl around.
Okay,
like
yeah.
Bulbasaur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's why there's so many babies there, because you had babies. That's what babies turn
Mhm.
into, is those things.
Yeah.
And then the different types of necromorphs is like you had a genetic code that predisposed you to turning into certain types. So like the infector, which is what that thing's called,
Mhm.
somebody devolved into an infector, and then they were meant to spread further and faster. And
Yeah. Yeah, because Kendra explains that it's like the thing that you just fought. That's meant to infect them, and the ones that are infected are meant to make more things for them.
Yeah,
to
because
infect.
infectors turn into specific ones.
Yeah.
Because the regenerator guy is ones that were specifically injected
Yeah.
with necromorph,
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, they were
And
created
juice.
by.
So
Yes.
that's
the
why they
hematology
turn
guys.
into regenerators,
Yeah.
because of how they were created in that person.
Because they got a whole load of necromorph juice.
Because the leapers, it says that the reason why they are that way is something about their legs fusing into one. That's why it
Mhm.
becomes the scorpion tail. So
Yeah.
it's something to do with the.
A lot of that stuff's in the text logs, which I completely.
Yeah, you gotta really
I-
look for
I
that
neglected
stuff.
the text logs.
I didn't read the text logs.
I've read a few of the text logs, and it's really funny because a lot of you'll get text logs about people with everyday problems. Like,
Yeah,
I remember
I didn't
there's-
read all of them, I should say.
There's one for security. I kind of remember. I don't remember exactly what it said, but it's something along the lines of, if this person does this again, I'm gonna kill him. And I'm like, well, he's probably dead.
Yeah. That's such a cool thing where, like, whether you read the text logs or listen to the audio logs, you hear and experience like the complete just degradation and of the status of the ship and people going crazy, and like it just shows you how things devolve and how people act in those situations, and you can see how some people try to barricade and some people just killed each other, and like whether they wanted to or not, it was just like this extremely desperate situation, and just like I'm just a dude here to do a job, look for my girlfriend.
It's kind of funny because you run into, like, I want to say you ran into a grand total of like actual 10 people who ain't dead.
Yeah, basically.
Some of them, like I have here, like a couple of them, like, were they even really there?
Yeah.
Because there's one where there's like this one lady crying over another body, and it's in the
Then she
chapter
hands you
5 when you revisit medical.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Was that first time?
No, there's one when
Oh,
you revisit medical
yeah,
in
yeah.
chapter 5.
And then like
There's a woman crying over someone dead in
yes,
one of the
okay,
beds.
further in, yeah.
But you can't interact with them, can't nothing, and then you leave and come back, and that person doesn't turn into a necromorph or anything. They're just gone.
Yeah.
So it's like, were they even there, or is that the marker starting to
Right.
affect you?
Oh man, and going through the unitology section where everybody's all wrapped up, and
Oh yeah, where you find or no, that's in 2. Never mind. I'm sorry.
I'm thinking of like it's like the residential area. But
No,
they have
there
the
is one.
candles
Yeah,
and
in one.
everything.
Okay, yeah, it has all with the holes in the head.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
yeah, okay, yeah, that is one in 1. Yep. And you find out because at first you're looking around like, what's going on, and then you see medical guy stab the one dude in the head
Yeah.
because he's trying to make it easy for the infector to be able to. He's like, this is the mark, and then,
Yeah.
it's like that's. By the way, you got to be able to stab really hard to put a blade that big in someone's skull.
Yeah.
and I have it get stuck at that. It just, he pulls it right on out like,
Yeah.
I'm doing good work here. No, you're not.
Man, it's such a good game. It's just I know we didn't talk chapter by chapter, and it's probably better for people to experience it themselves. And we did go over a lot of the story, but there's a lot, even in, if you just take Dead Space 1 and isolate it, as the game does to you, and you just look at it on its own. When it comes to the audio logs, text logs, the backstory surrounding the events of the Ishimura, like, it is such a well-crafted world, and it sets up a lot of things that could play out really well in future games, but it doesn't have to. Like when you end the game and you're flying away from the ship, the planet that just got blown up from the giant meteor that came down, and you're like, I made it.
Luck.
Yeah. Like you're like, I made it, I survived. Everyone else is dead. Literally everyone. Every single other person. The doctor was trying to help you, gets killed by Kendra. You bring Kendra back from the shuttle. You leave her on the planet. She gets wrecked by the hive mind. Hammond dies by the super brute.
Yeah.
In the engine room or whatever.
I thought he was going to totally Staff Sergeant Johnson that dude. I really did.
He's gonna come back in 2 no matter
Yeah.
what.
I thought
He didn't really die.
No, when he was going, like when the dude was going, he was like, "I got this." I'm like, "Go get him."
Yeah.
Well, it's funny we brought that up in when we did a Halo 2 episode because Sergeant Johnson's there and they're like, "How did you make it through?" And he's like, "That's classified."
Yeah, it's
Like,
classified.
no, that dude died.
Yeah. Hammond's the
I am a clone.
like Hammond's the only character like once you realize what's happening, he's like the only one that's like on your side. Truly, like he was.
Well,
just,
he's really the only one you feel bad for.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, he's a
He
little
didn't sign up for this.
single-minded in the beginning. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, all right, maybe we should be thinking a little more. But at the same time, it's like, dude's just trying to do his job. He's
Yeah.
trying to help the best he can. He never turns against Isaac
yeah,
or anything.
all the
you
while
know?
Kendra's the one playing you.
Yeah.
And Hammond. Yeah.
I mean, like, so, I mean, obviously, I feel bad for everybody who gets, turned into necromorphs or whatever. But at the same
some
time,
of them
it's
chose
like,
that life.
well, okay,
Yeah,
I'm saying
the
I feel bad for
Unitologists.
most people. Even then, I feel a little bad for because it's like you
You're a
know,
cult. You got,
maybe you should just be euthanized. But, but it's like in the moment of anyone living there, like he's the only one where it's like, man, he really got a raw deal.
Yeah.
There's a point where you go to one of the stations, the trolley stations. Like when you get there, there's nothing on the dock. You go, you do everything, you come back, and all of a sudden there's like loads of those like wrapped up people all over the dock, and I'm like, who put these here? like I'm like, hold on, everybody else I've ran into is already like, so
Yeah.
like, are the necromorphs like?
Yeah, it's one of those. It's always makes you question your sanity. But yeah, the game on its own, even like it's such a good. It wraps itself up really well. There could have been a sequel because Nicole is dead. You look over and oh crap, Nicole.
Okay, so in getting
So
into
obviously
that,
the marker is still
in wrapping things up and stuff, because I
Yeah,
mean there are
we're
things
going a
we
little
could go on all day about some things, but just to
I'm
kind
sure
of
we're gonna miss stuff too.
to
man.
yeah, I mean there's stuff I'm trying to think of that I miss, but
And
I
it's
mean
not even that long of a game. Sorry, I don't mean to keep interrupting, but
it
it's,
was
it's
like
a short game.
in
There's
9
so
hours
much.
I think it took
Yeah.
me 8-9 hours or
It's
whatever.
not that
And-
long.
Yeah, there's so much.
Well,
that,
and once you kind of know it, you could run through it
Yeah.
in like 4 or 5 hours. Or
there's
something.
just so much. It's so dense with how much is.
So to bring it into kind of final thoughts and stuff, like what let's go Mr. Scott first. What would be your final thoughts on Dead Space?
Great game, just all around great game. Like it's worth to play at least once.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because the story is great, the fear aspect executed so well. It's one of the very few games that's not copy and paste. Because I mean, like most zombie games, shoot them in the head. Most survival games, collect the things, make the thing,
Yeah.
finish the thing.
Yeah.
This game was sheer just like cutting you off from help. That's the thing that drives, like, that's the driving force. It's cutting you off from help. Like, even in the very beginning when you start the game, it splits you off.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And from that point on, you're by yourself.
Yeah, you figure it out for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, as you're walking through these halls and, necromorphs, the only sounds you hear are necromorphs crawling through the vents, the giggles, Isaac's breath, his footprints, like his footsteps.
The whisper all day long.
But
And Isaac's grunts.
talk
Sorry.
about this man, I swear, when he is stumping, it's like, come on, got her.
I mean, I would be too.
It's even better in the second game.
Oh
And
my
especially
gosh.
with some of the enemies that like the armored, heavy ones later, where you got to shoot them like 20, even
You
take
know-
off every limb and you start stomping, you'd be like, yeah, you mother. Yeah. I'd
There's
be angry too.
actually, when you if you press the stumping button enough, he'll actually do one where he actually like kind of does a small leap in the air and comes down.
Yeah,
and
He's
stomp.
getting more and
Like,
more aggressive with
And,
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not in the first game. And quick note for like in the second game, he starts adding voice lines. The
Yeah.
more you punch and kick and stuff. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
So, but as a whole, great game.
And what would you say, Tyler?
Oh, highly recommended. 100% must play game. It's not a product of its time. It stands up well to scrutiny today. Small little nitpicks, but it's a near perfect. In my eyes, it's nearly perfect. Like
No.
it has so many things working for it. It takes elements from other games and it blends them together in this awesome feeling of just like in control, great storytelling, great feeling of isolation, perfect ambiance. This was so for me. I also have maybe a little nostalgia to it, but this was one of the first games that had achievements. Because like before this, I've 100%.
Well, one of the first games like you played
Yeah.
with achievements.
Well, one of the first games that I completed with achievements.
Okay.
I had played games
I
previously
was
that
saying, 'cause
were
there was
like,
a lot of games before Dead Space with
yeah,
achievements.
well, that's what I meant. I kind of
The first
circle
one that
around.
you felt you liked enough to be compelled, you wanted all of them.
Yeah,
and-
because I had completed games previously, but this was the first one that I could show on my gamer tag, like I have 100%ed this game.
Yeah.
Like it was the first series that I had actually spent enough time to do multiple playthroughs, to get all the achievements, to unlock everything you could possibly unlock and experience the entire game. First game ever that I really was like, I love this game.
I will make one small note on that. This is the first game that the achievements or trophies, depending on what you played on, wasn't crazy.
Oh yeah,
Like it wasn't like
most of them are
super,
pretty reasonable.
super achievable.
yeah. Like it wasn't like shoot a necromorph from around the corner with one shot and make sure that it kills another necromorph while you're
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
it. So
No
some
trick
cra-
shots.
Yeah, like
The only
foolishness
one that
like
I had annoying was that one you had to melee so many, just because it's only 30 enemies, but it takes forever for some reason.
But
Yeah.
it's so much
But
fun to
it's
punch
really
it
not
in the
that
face.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a special feeling when you take a plasma cutter and just like, bow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's like the ending boss aside, it's one of those it strikes a special chord. I mentioned this before, but like yes, I am an engineer in real life. I have an so I have already a bias towards that. But it's like
and you love space.
I love space.
All right,
Space,
Isaac.
yeah, space horror and psychological horror are my favorite versions of horror. So like yeah, I have a lot of things that are like
Tyler erects massive rockets for his love for space.
seriously, like, yes, there are a lot of things playing towards my biases. I get that, but biases aside, it's if you were to put this game and put it into a different setting outside of space, like underwater, and change the enemy like variants, like make things different. If you were to just create this game and put it into a different setting, the way the game plays is still like it could be put in any kind of horror scenario and be great, in my opinion. I really do believe that. Like you could take like you could be a farmer on a ranch and you're using farm tools to kill like when aliens or zombies or something and same play style, and it would still be you could make it great. Like it's like this the way the game plays, how you build the world. Like if you were to I think it's not just the fact that I have biases. I think that it could be.
I think that plays a big part to it, though.
Well,
It does.
Okay, so it's made
Yes,
so
I
I
highly
get what you're
recommend
saying.
it.
Like if they made a bunch of copies of these, it was the exact same thing with like a little bit different story or
Like all the
whatever.
Dark Souls
like they
clones.
would, like so most of the Dark
Yeah.
Souls clones. It's not that they're bad games; they're still for the most part decent games. But
Yeah.
like some are better than others, but none of them reach that quite amazing level as Dark Souls. But if you just make copies of Dark Souls games, for the most part, they're fairly enjoyable. So
Yeah.
like I get where you're going. Like if they were to copy
Well,
the same thing with a little bit
it's-
different setting,
It's a game worth
it's-
mimicking.
it's done
Well-
very, very well.
yeah.
I was just when you were saying that, I was like, you're like, oh, you can put it underwater. I was like BioShock.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
That's what came to mind.
yeah,
instantly.
it's in the
It's-
very much same vein. The first one, at least, is
yeah,
very similar. to
because
Dead
the dude
Space, so,
never
I mean,
talks.
Yeah.
You're isolated, and well, he's not a soldier, but
Well,
Yeah.
neither was Isaac. So I mean,
yeah.
but it's a very similar kind of idea.
Yeah,
And this
so-
this thing falling apart all around you.
Yeah.
And space.
People going crazy.
Well, like a lot of people would say, like the most comparable thing you can get to space on Earth is being
Yes,
a
underwater.
few miles underwater,
Mhm.
because it's very, very similar in a lot of aspects
Yeah.
of isolation and the danger of everything outside and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
So
it's
that, when you said it, I was like, that's the first thing you're like, put it underwater. I was like,
BioShock.
yeah, that's why you gave me that look. I'm like, oh, yeah.
So I
Yeah.
would concur with both of you guys. It's a fantastic game. If you're not, the only people I would recommend not to play it is just those who can't handle horror or whatsoever.
body horror
'Cause-
especially. 'cause
I mean, it's gross to put it
Oh,
out there.
so
The
yeah.
game-
Oh my goodness.
The dismemberment, the guts, it is gross.
Yeah.
And remake, I'm excited to see what they're doing with much higher levels of fidelity with
Oh,
grossness
yeah.
and stuff. So yeah, if you absolutely can't handle that stuff at all, it's a scary one. Like it's
we
straight
haven't
up.
talked
it's so
about
good.
one of the biggest things in this whole entire game.
What's that?
You can rip off their arms and nail them to the wall.
That's
not
in two.
number 2.
You can do that in one?
Nope.
You can't?
Nope.
You can't just pull them off. No, you can.
We'll talk about it. We'll get to it.
I swear I can
That's
do
that's in two. Anyway,
I was gonna specifically call that out, but yeah.
previews for the next episode.
Previews.
Because
Yeah.
we're gonna do number 2 next. But either way, Dead Space is a fantastic game. Yes, there are a couple little rough spots, but if you're willing to power through those, it's so good in
Yeah.
so many ways all over. It's definitely worth. I enjoyed myself fully playing it all over again.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't. If I do play it again, I will say play it on. If you're into the survival really and you want to challenge yourself, play it on hard or something, because normal and easy, even normal is pretty easy.
Yeah.
You got plenty of ammo and stuff. But
Yeah.
but other than that, I mean, it's just a fantastic all around game.
And I'm looking forward to the remake, but I'm personally going to miss Isaac's clunkiness.
That was going to be my thing. One last question before we hang it up is, if you could pick one thing to change and one thing to keep, just one.
Yeah.
One thing to change and one thing to keep from the remake.
I'll
Go.
So yes, the one thing I personally would like to keep is I like the quality of life changes they do for the future games, but keep Isaac clunky. I'm sorry, but if this is his first ever interaction with these monsters, and he's not a soldier, he's an engineer, the whole feeling of isolation and this, like, yeah, he gets angrier and angrier, more badass as you continue through the game, but like, he's not a fighter when you first start off. He's slow, he's scared, and you're just trying to survive. I would keep that, the slow punches, the slow kicks, the fact that he's like always on edge. Keep that. The things that I would change is the turret section. I mean, it's not a huge deal. Turret section and the 0G. I know that's the one that's always mentioned, but it is true. The 0G works much better in the future games.
Okay, so it does work better, but it's not bad by
Yeah.
any means in the first one. So
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just like
All you do is go from platform to platform
yeah,
now. You just
like
look at
it works fine. It works better in other ones, but it works
Yeah.
fine. But,
But-
but definitely the turret ones and
Yeah.
stuff, because like you could just straight
Yeah,
cut those.
I
out.
honestly can't think of anything else I would change. Okay,
Well,
the
you
final,
get one. You're done.
Yeah.
You now, Scott.
All right.
Yeah.
One.
No more
One
for
of
you.
each. So
No
so
more for
you
you.
as well. One
All
one
right.
of each. One thing you would keep. One thing you would
One
change.
thing I would keep, I would definitely keep. I like his silence.
I knew he was gonna say that. I knew
The
that was coming.
silence is it sells Isaac. Like, I mean, in the later games, yes, I do enjoy all his lines of dialogue, but the original game, because he's not there to make friends. He's not there to be social. He's there for one purpose and one purpose alone. He's looking for Nicole.
Yeah.
He's not there to save the world.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
And fix a ship.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I'm here to do a job.
Yeah, I'm here to do some work. But, and if I had to take out something, I would probably be the turret.
The turret
Or
section.
no,
Or would it
No.
be the boss?
that boss.
That boss at the end.
Yeah.
So. So for me, I think the biggest thing that I would keep is the doors. Make sure that because I mean, the what we have available to us now is so much more powerful than it used to
yeah.
be. So like you can make this game where there'd be no, and I think they've even said that there's absolutely no load times, no loading screens, no nothing.
For most games now.
But keep the doors where they open slow,
Mhm.
because that to me adds that level of tension. Because like in Resident Evil, door is safe. You can run from a zombie. You touch the door, it activates. You go into its own little loading cut screen. You're
Mhm.
totally safe. Doors aren't safe, and that was one thing that I found really stuck out and I loved, was that because you can't really run away from like a lot of these enemies. Like I say, you got to stay on your ground. So you got to figure it out. You got to learn how to live in that moment. You can't rely on just running through a door. So keep the doors where they take a little bit of time to open.
Mhm.
And then the biggest thing that I would change, which is funny that you say, like, keep Isaac clunky. I don't want him to necessarily be better, but just a little more accessibility in like camera speed. If he ran just a tiny little bit faster, just to give you that option of like for that survival aspect of if you can run away a little bit to at least to get to the other side of the room,
Yeah.
to give yourself a little breathing room to shoot the necromorphs. So just those little tweaks and accessibility of having new options with new hardware and things like that.
Yeah.
That would be my keep and change kind of thing.
I was gonna say, in some instances where, like, you know, when the doors are opening, like if a necromorph is coming at you and the door's open, sometimes it'll stop, turn around, and like go around the corner,
Yeah,
and then you'll turn around to go into the next room, and it'll drop
right on
there.
top of you. Yeah.
I've had that happen to me so many
Yeah.
times.
It's awesome. I say, like, just to touch on that, if they do make it where doors do open, if it's going to be one continual world, then
They can follow you
yeah,
through the door.
from the beginning of the game until the end, you could have like a necromorph that you never killed, and he just pops
Because
out.
that is one thing that would be weird. That is weird because a lot of them can't follow you through the doors. They'll go back into the vents and follow you into the room, but they can't follow you through the door because there are a bunch of enemies when you walk through. They'll just turn around and go the other way.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
So that is kind of goofy. So if they did change it, but they could chase you straight through the door,
yeah.
because some enemies can, then some enemies can't. But yeah, that would add
That'd be
a
cool
little
too,
bit.
because then you could use your doors to your advantage and have them drop on the top of enemies' heads.
Yeah,
And stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
if they added something like that, would be really cool. All right, well, let's wrap that up then
Yeah,
for Dead
This
Space
is going
1.
long.
Thank you. Well, about average, maybe a couple minutes longer. But thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Scott, on
Mr.
our Dead
Scott.
Space episode. Thank you, Tyler, for everything you have there. Well, we
Yep,
hope
yep.
that you enjoyed listening. Happy Halloween again, everyone, on this special Halloween episode. We hope you had a great spooky season. And you have lots of candy and do whatever awesome stuff you guys are going to do. Go play Dead Space. Yeah, just hammer it out tonight on Halloween. Turn all the lights off, put your headphones on, and just knock it all out. 1 8-hour session overnight. Don't sleep. Don't do it.
Yeah, you won't want to. 'Cause the first time, if it's your first time ever playing through, you won't want to sleep. You won't know what's real.
No sleep tonight. Just death.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to Galactalloy.